Ladies and gentlemen, good morning. Welcome to lesson 2 of the Siddur Unpacked. This morning's lesson is titled A New Lease on Life, and it is generously sponsored by Larry and Annie Sharfstein. I hope Larry is watching live on Facebook. If not, Larry, when you get to watch this recording, thank you very much. Big thank you for sponsoring this morning's lesson. And we're going to talk about 3 prayers, all right? If you have your textbook, you should have it open to page 16. And those that do not have a textbook yet, I know you're waiting for them. I did order them on Monday, and hopefully they will be here shortly, but so far they have not arrived yet. If you have a Siddur, you should be open to page 5. Today we are going to be doing the 3 prayers at the bottom of page 5, which are Netilat Yadayim, Asher Yatzar, and Elokai Neshama. That is the plan for today. Good morning, Phil and Sonia. If you'd like to have some breakfast, there's breakfast here. Get yourself settled. There's coffee and tea. Okay, beautiful. So we've all heard the expression, today is the first day of the rest of your life, yes? This saying does a good job expressing the notion that every morning is a fresh start. But from a Jewish perspective, as we began to discuss last week, this is literal. In other words, every day of a person's life is literally every day is literally the first day of the rest of their lives. Why? Because we are literally beginning a brand new life. As we mentioned, God takes away most of our soul. Most of our soul ascends above to the heavens. And then in the morning, we get our soul back. And that comes back down here and comes back down into our bodies. And we get a brand new day. So there are... Understanding this context can give us a little bit of an understanding as to why it is that we are going to be saying the prayers that we're about to say. Okay, and we're going to open with the prayer midway down page 5, which is Al Netilat Yadayim, which is just a blessing, but it's a blessing on a mitzvah. Okay, so why don't we start by reading that blessing? Jonathan, if you'd like to get us started. I think for the recording, you need to pass this around, which is a little mic. You can talk into that while you read. Go ahead.
Upon rising, I offer thanks to you.
No, that one we did last week. So we're midway down page 5. The blessing that we make, and you can actually start from the order of the washing of the hands, explaining what's going on, like what we're doing, and then the blessing. Go ahead.
Morning blessings.
Take a cup.
Order of washing the hands. Take a cup of water in the right hand, pass it to the left hand, and pour water over the entire right hand until the wrist. Take the cup in the right hand and pour over the entire left hand. Wash twice more, so that each hand has been washed 3 times in alternating sequence. On Tisha B'Av and Yom Kippur, wash only until knuckles. Dry the hands. And
what is the blessing that we make? We stand while reciting this blessing.
Blessed are you, Lord our God, King of the universe, who has sanctified us with his commandments and commanded us concerning the washing of the hands. Blessed are you, Lord our God, King of the universe, who has formed man in wisdom and created with him numerous orifices and cavities.
Let's not do that one yet. Okay, that's the second blessing. The first blessing is on washing our hands. So first I want to talk about why it is that we are washing our hands. Okay? There are actually 2 reasons. And the first reason was in yesterday's parsha. In yesterday's parsha, we discussed the different vessels that there are in the temple. And one of those vessels was called the kiyor. The kiyor was like a tank of water that had many spigots on the bottom, like faucets. And the priests, the Kohanim, when they would come to the temple, they would wash their hands before beginning the service in the temple, right? Now, as Jews, we believe that's a macro, if you will, for our micro service that we do every single day. In other words, every single one of us, every single morning wakes up, and there's a process that we do in order to be able to serve God. There's many things that we do. Eating is part of serving God. Attending a class on Sunday mornings is part of serving God. Speaking to other people is part of serving God, and of course, putting on tefillin and davening and things like that is part of serving God, right? So before we serve God, as a way of mimicking the priests in the Holy Temple, we wash our hands. Hence, the blessing on washing the hands. But there's a second reason why we wash our hands, okay? And this one comes to us from the Zohar. This is more of a mystical reason. And this has to do with the forces of purity and impurity. And on page 22, we're jumping around here a little bit. But on page 22, Marilyn, if we can ask you to read, please. Here you go, Marilyn. Text 1 is from the Zohar. And it discusses this business with purity and impurity and what happens when a person wakes up in the morning? Marilyn. Marilyn, here. If you can just hold this while you read. Sorry, because otherwise it doesn't go into the recording. I'm doing my best to make sure the recording goes well. Go ahead.
Rabbi Shimon opened his teaching by explaining the verse, "I wash my hands in cleanliness." Come see the hidden and deeper meaning of the matter. There is no person in the world who does not taste the taste of death at night, when a spirit of impurity resides on the body. What is the reason for this? Because the holy soul departs the person's body, the spirit of impurity resides in that body. And when the soul returns to the body, that impurity is cleansed. But it is stated that the impurity remains on the person's hands. Therefore, a person should not pass their hands over their eyes because of that spirit of impurity until they wash them. And when they wash them in accordance with the law, they are sanctified and are called holy.
Thank you. In other words, we're getting now a second reason as to why we wash our hands every morning. The first reason was, of course, because we're mimicking the priests in the Holy Temple in Jerusalem. And we're going to serve God, so therefore we wash our hands in the morning. The second reason now we're learning is because there's a spirit of impurity that there is on our hands, excuse me, that we can only get rid of by washing our hands, right? That spirit of impurity comes because the forces of impurity attach themselves to death. And there is nobody that when they sleep does not taste the taste of death. So therefore, we're washing our hands in order to get rid of that. But there's a third reason. And that third reason is going to come to us from text 2, which is from Shulchan Aruch, from the Jewish Code of Law. And that is because of a rule that's called Yadayim Askaniot Hein. Okay? Leticia, can I ask you to read this one for us? You just need the mic. There you go. Sorry. In other words, we're worried that during the night, the hands are busy, and while you're unconscious, we have no idea where your hands went. They may have touched certain areas of the body, which, by the way, is any place that's uncovered. So let's say even your armpits or, scratching your scalp, as we'll see soon. So if they have touched those areas of the body, according to Jewish law, you have to wash your hands before saying anything holy. So that's another reason why we wash our hands. When you're ready, Leticia, go ahead. Text 2 on page 23.
Our sages ordained that we should wash our hands with water every morning and recite the blessing, Al Netilat Yadayim. The rationale for this ordinance is explained by some as preparation for the morning recital of Shema and the Amidah. For the hands are constantly active and probably touch impure parts of the body during sleep. Another reason is explicit in the Zohar, in Parashat Vayeshev, and also mentioned in the Talmud, to remove the spirit of impurity that rests on the hands, which results from the withdrawal of the soul's holiness from the person's body at night when they are asleep. Yet another reason is that this washing enables us to sanctify ourselves for the service of God by pouring pure water from a container over our hands. Just as a priest in the Holy Temple would sanctify his hands, washing from the kior, this is why our sages ordained that we say in the blessing the words, who sanctified us.
Keep going on page 24. In the Talmud.
In the Talmud, as well, the sages caution about the spirit of impurity that rests on a person's hand upon awakening, saying that it is not removed entirely until we wash them 3 times, alternating hands each time.
Okay, thank you so much.
Sorry.
It's okay. So these are 3 reasons that are given for why it is that we wash our hands every morning. And I think now it's time to talk about how we wash our hands, right? So if you'll pardon me, I'm just going to go get a washing cup. So I think many of you are familiar with how we wash our hands when we wash for hamotzi, which is before eating bread. But actually, it's a little bit different when we wash our hands for negelwasser. Okay? This first washing is actually colloquially called negelwasser. Negelwasser means nail water. That's because the spirit of impurity starts to get banished from our body, but it remains, it stays on the tips of the fingers. So that's what they call it, nail water. And I want to talk about how we do so. Okay? Before I talk about how we do so, I want to talk about the custom of washing hands twice. Okay? Our sages tell us that we shouldn't walk 4 cubits without washing our hands. Now, how are we going to accomplish that if usually you wake up in your bed? Not every night, I understand. Some nights you wake up other places, but usually you wake up in your bed, and the sink, if I had to guess, is probably further than 4 cubits from your bed. Right? I mean, unless you have one of those specially designed homes where there's a sink right by your bed. I don't know why you need it, but if you need that, Perfect. A cubit is about this big, about 1.5 feet. Okay, so let's say about 6 feet. All right? So you shouldn't walk 6 feet without washing your hands. So they sell what's called a kvart. This is a kvart. Kvart is a Yiddish word for like a little hand washing cup. And basically you'll see that it's basically just a cup and then has 2 handles. And the reason for that is because you're going to wash your hands like this. We've all seen one of these. And then they sell something called a shissel. They sell them on Amazon. It's not under shissel. Don't look under shissel. That's the Yiddish word for it. But it basically means like a little, round or square pail. And you're going to look a little bit lower. Don't think of a pail like a bucket. Think like a small basin, like you would use for dishwashing usually, right? Very often people have them for their dishes. And what people often do is they fill up this kvart with water the night before, put it inside that shissel, that basin, and they put it at the foot of their bed. Okay, the Chabad custom, by the way, is not even to put your feet on the ground before washing your hands. And what they'll do is they'll wash their hands right there. Now, you don't say a blessing then, okay? Because this wasn't a proper washing the hands, and you haven't used the bathroom yet, and you're going to do a lot of other things. So they'll wash their hands one time then, and that's mainly to satisfy getting rid of the impurity. And then for all the other reasons, like for example, you're going to get dressed, you're going to use the bathroom, you're going to touch all sorts of parts of your body that you have to wash your hands afterwards, etc., right? So therefore, later on, they'll wash their hands again after using the bathroom and after doing everything else. They'll come downstairs. I mean, I'm picturing my head, but they'll come to the kitchen, they'll wash their hands a second time, and that one they'll do much better, okay? Now, by each of these times, there's kind of like the different nuances of the way that we wash our hands. Both times, you fill up the kvart, and then you're going to pick it up in your right hand, because we always start everything with our right hand. So you pick it up with your right hand, pass it to your left, and you're going to start on your right hand. And then you wash 6 times alternating. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and you're done. Ideally, you're doing this at the foot of your bed into a pail of some sort. So you're taking that pail, you're going to the bathroom, you're spilling it out. That water is now impure. We should make sure, go ahead, please join us. You should make sure that nothing touches the water, including your fingers, right? Like you shouldn't touch the water with your fingers. You hold it from the handles, and that's one of the reasons. It's also very important. Shulchan Aruch mentions, the Jewish Code of Law mentions, we didn't quote this here, but Jewish law mentions you shouldn't touch any orifices of your body, including your eyes, your nose, your mouth, your ears, etc. In fact, the way that Shulchan Aruch mentions it is, you shouldn't touch your eyes because it can bring blindness to the eyes. You shouldn't touch your mouth because it can bring muteness and bad breath to the mouth. All these things because you touch these orifices before washing your hands. And that's, again, one of the reasons we have it right there, like we can wash our hands right away as soon as we rise in the morning. So let's go through the rising in the morning again, combining last week's lesson and this week's lesson, right? Last week we mentioned that we started by saying Modani. So you wake up in the morning as soon as you can. Let's talk about something you don't do right away. The phone could wait. You don't have to check your messages first thing in the morning, right? Okay, wake up. First thing we do is we put our hands together, we bend our head down, we say Modani Lefanecha. The first prayer is top of page 5. Thank you, God, for giving us back our soul. We don't want to be even a moment in debt to God. Beautiful. We then continue by leaning over the bed. Hopefully you have a kvart and a shissel prepared from the night before. You wash your hands, at least to get rid of the impurity, and now you're going to start your day, right? What's one of the next things you're going to do? You're going to use the bathroom. That's why one of the next lessons is for using the bathroom. But actually, before we get to that, I want to talk about the second washing hands. Even though the second washing hands is going to be later, after you use the bathroom and get dressed and come into the kitchen, before you have your coffee, you're going to wash your hands and say all the rest of the blessings. And that's when you're going to say Netilat Yadayim, and that's when you're going to say Asher Yatzar, etc. But the second washing of the hands, there is one more Chabad custom. And that is that as soon as you're done washing your hands, we hold our hands up while we make the blessing. That's the Chabad custom. Okay. I feel like I've given you at least a little bit of there's more details, but I feel like I've given you at least the basic laws of how we wash our hands. And once you wash your hands the second time, you make this blessing, Al Netilat Yadayim. Okay, beautiful. The next blessing that we have in front of us on page 5 is Asher Yatzar. All right? And I'd like to start by reading the actual blessing. Larry, since you arrived late, you get to read. Okay, so you hold on to that. And you read for us, please. We're on page 5. No, you're Siddur. There you go.
I know what it is.
Perfect, right there. The blessing of Asher Yatzar is this one. Hold that. There you go.
Blessed are you, Lord our God, King of the universe, who has formed man and wisdom and created within him numerous orifices and cavities. Is revealed and known before the throne of your glory that if one of them were to be blocked, or one of them were to be opened, it would be impossible to exist even for a short while. Blessed are you, Lord, who heals all flesh and performs wonders.
Okay, now typically this blessing is often referred to as the bathroom blessing, because it is true that throughout the day, if you use the bathroom, you're supposed to say this blessing after using the bathroom. However, it's in the morning we say it not just for using the bathroom, but even for waking up. Like we said, there's this theme of our day is starting anew, the first day of the rest of my life, right? In other words, you've been given the whole digestive system and the whole anatomical system that we have that takes care of everything in our bodies to breathe and oxygen and digest and think and all different things, right? So we thank God for the system of the body. Now, throughout the day, anytime we use the bathroom, usually what you do is you wash your hands and then say Asher Yatzar, etc. Okay. Now, some of what we've read is a little bit repetitive with text 3 and text 4, but we haven't read them yet, so let's do that now. Who has a textbook here? Michelle, you're up next, so if you can read for us, please. Text 3 and text 4. There you go. These are both from Shulchan Aruch, the Jewish Code of Law. We're on page 24 in the textbook.
Rabbi Shneur Zalman of Liadi.
You can start from the actual text. Right hand first.
Oh.
We wash
our right hand first. However, because it is desirable that the water that purifies one's hands comes from the right hand, for the reason explained in the Zohar, therefore, the container of water should be picked up with the right hand and then passed to the left so that one can pour water on the right hand first.
Okay, so that was the reasoning behind why it is that we start with the right hand, even though you really need the quart in the left hand. What did we say? We said you fill it up. After you fill it up, you pick it up with your right hand, pass it to your left hand, and then start pouring on your right hand. A little bit strange, right? Why don't you just pick it up with your left hand? That's the reason, because we always like to start good things from the right. Okay. This has a lot to do with Kabbalah and Chesed being on the right, etc. That's why I paused and said I'm not going to get into all that. Okay, text 4 is about Asher Yatzar.
According to the law, as stated in the Gemara, it is not necessary to recite the blessing of the Asher Yatzar unless one relieves themselves. Nevertheless, it has become the universal custom to recite this blessing every morning immediately after the blessing Al Netilat Yadayim, for every day a person becomes a newly created being. Thus, every single day, it is appropriate to recite a blessing that praises God for forming humankind with wisdom. A person who wishes to leave no room for doubt should make a point of relieving themselves immediately after washing their hands in the morning. This is the washing we refer to as Negel Basar. After leaving the lavatory, they should wash their hands a second time, the washing we refer to as Netilat Yadayim, and recite the blessing Asher Yatzar. With this blessing, they fulfill their obligation even if they had earlier been obligated to recite it as an expression of gratitude for having become a newly created being, for the one blessing serves both purposes. It is preferable that the blessing of Al Netilat Yadayim not be recited until after one washes their hands the second time, after leaving the lavatory, particularly if, when they rose, they felt the need to relieve themselves, in which instance it would have been forbidden for them to recite a blessing.
Okay, so that is why we have these two Netilat Yadayims, and why we have these two blessings. One is Al Netilat Yadayim that goes after we wash our hands the second time. Right? We're washing our hands twice. We're saying the blessing after the second time, and then immediately afterwards we're saying the blessing of Asher Yatzar, because that's kind of part of the same process. Okay, everybody with me so far? Until now, believe it or not, has been the practical. That's been the pragmatic parts of this law. But as usual, there's a deeper perspective, and it's one of the things we promised in this course. We're going to try and give a deeper perspective on each of these things. It turns out that when we pour water onto our hands, there's actually another symbolism here, and it's a little bit of a deeper symbolism, and it's going to be text 5. Jonathan, if we can ask you, I think we're back up to you. If you can read for us, please. This comes to us from the Frierdiker Rebbe, right? The Rebbe Rayatz, our Rebbe's father-in-law, and he shared a very beautiful insight. So I'll explain afterwards. But first, John, if you can read it for us, and then I'll unpack it. Go ahead.
This is one of the differences between intellect and emotions. Whereas intellect operates deliberately and logically, emotion is wild and violent. Whether it loves or hates, pure emotion is forceful and passionate. This is the purpose of Netilat Yadayim, pouring water representing the flow of intellect in order to purify the emotions of their more destructive properties and place them under the influence of the mind. In the Netilat Yadayim process, the hands are washed gradually, alternating hands with each pour of the water, purifying one emotion, then another, until we rinse all of the emotions.
So this is a very interesting perspective on the Netilat Yadayim. Emotions are naturally volatile. Okay, they're naturally not contained. I'm not talking about your emotions. I mean, I am talking about your emotions as well, but think about emotions as they begin. Right? Every child, as they enter this world, starts off by having emotions. Right? And those emotions, look at a child, they swing from one side to the other side. And if you haven't had children recently, trust me, Okay? I have them. I'm currently raising them. And they can be sobbing their brains off because they slipped and whatever. And I'm doing my best to go, oh my gosh, they're so sad, they slipped and they got a cut and they got a thing. And I have a bad day, I'm doing the whole thing, whatever. And all of a sudden in the airplane, oh, look at the airplane. And they're so happy. Right? How do you swing from being so sad to so happy to so angry to so depressed? Oh, back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. And I'm told that this only gets worse when they become teenagers, right? Yeah? Okay. Just confirm it with the teenage moms in the room, the moms of teenagers in the room. Anyways, my point is, these emotions by nature are volatile. They're extreme. They jump from side to side, right? And usually we compare that with like warmth or fire or heat, like that's emotions. The fire of the moment, the heat of the moment, I said something, right? You hear these kind of expressions. Now, water represents the exact opposite. Water is calm, cool. What's the expression in English? You pour cold water on their emotions, right? Why? Because water is like the intellect. As we know, from a Hasidic, not just from a Hasidic perspective, from a maturity perspective, the goal is that as we mature, our intellect should control our emotions, which is why, hopefully, in regular day-to-day life, you guys don't display emotions like a toddler. If you're sad about something, it's calculated. Yes, I'm sad because I lost a loved one, and it's going to take me a while to get over it, and that's okay. It's going to be a long process, and it's understood, and it's not just emotional; it's also intellectual. Is my point. And there's intellect that controls and dictates where the emotions go. Right? That's the way it's supposed to be. Negovasa represents that balance, if you will. Pouring, Netilat Yadayim, pouring, and especially the back and forth pouring, is cool. First of all, it's cool. It's water, right? It's cool. It's cooling it off. Don't use water from the urn for this. That was a joke. Obviously, you shouldn't use water from the urn. Okay. You should. I guess I'm not as funny as I think I am. All right. You pour cool water, and you pour it in a very calculated way, back and forth and back and forth, etc. It's supposed to be cool and calculated, while representing this mastery that we intend to have over the course of the day as we serve God. There are lots of emotions that are going to pull us in lots of different directions. I want to get angry at this person. I want to be depressed and stay in bed all day, etc. Lots of different emotions, and the water and the calculation is us saying, I'm going to keep it all intact. So when you wash your hands, if you want to have a little bit of meditation, this is an idea, a deeper perspective on washing our hands. Okay. Once we've done all this, you've used the bathroom, you've gotten dressed, and you've gotten up, and you come downstairs, and you wash your hands a second time. Now you made it out of Netilat Yadayim. That's on the second washing hands. You wash the way we said you're supposed to. You rub your hands, you raise them, you make the second blessing on Netilat Yadayim. Beautiful. Then you make the blessing Asher Yatzar, because you're thanking God for your digestive system and your whole anatomical system, that everything's working the way it's supposed to. Beautiful. Now it's time to thank God properly for giving us back our life, right? Last week we spoke about it. We spoke about how there's going to be an expanded version of Modani. Modani is brief. It's a one-liner. We say it as soon as we wake up in the morning. But now it's already half an hour later. I'm getting ready, right? I'm getting ready to start my day and to thank God properly about things. I can now say God's name because my hands are pure, and I can properly get involved in a proper blessing. I'm not sitting on my bed, right? Leaning on my elbow, right? So now it's time to say a proper thank you to God for giving us back our soul, and that is the blessing of Elokai Neshama. It's at the bottom of page 5. Marilyn, you want to read it for us, please? At the bottom of page 5 in your Siddur. I'll get used to it eventually, which page and which book. If you can read for us, please, Elokai Neshama in the English.
In English. My God, the soul which you have given within me is pure. You have created it, you have formed it. You have breathed it into me, and you have preserved it within me. You will eventually take it from me and restore it within me in the time to come. So long as the soul is within me, I offer thanks to you, Lord my God and God of my fathers, Master of all works, Lord of all souls. Blessed are you, Lord, who restores souls to dead bodies.
Thank you, Marilyn. In other words, we're thanking God for the connection between soul and body. There's a lot to unpack in this prayer, but I want to talk about this connection between soul and body. We walk around our lives taking it for granted. Right? Anybody, we all worry about lots of things, right? We all get stressed about lots of things. Is anybody worried that their soul and their body somehow are going to function on two separate playing fields? No, right? You walk around your life, you just expect it. It's going to go together. There's the body and there's the soul. But the truth is that this wonder, this miracle could not be further from the truth, could not be more miraculous. This feat could not be more miraculous. Thank you so much, Anna. Have a great day. Thank you so much for breakfast. We really appreciate it. It couldn't be further from the truth, this assumption that we labor under, that this impression that we labor under, that everything just goes well together. Think about it. Even from everything you know about the soul and the body, even if you don't know much, you know that the soul is spiritual and the body is physical. The body can be seen, right? The body has a finite tzir, a form to it, right? The soul doesn't. The soul surpasses everything and has an essential nature to it, etc., right? So what's going on here? How do the two function together? How does the soul stay inside the body and power the body? The truth is, it is a tremendous, tremendous miracle. And this is a big, in Hebrew we call it a pele. It's a wonder that such a thing happens. And it's only out of the graciousness of God's goodness and kindness to us that he does this every single day. And we thanked already for it by Maidani, right, at the beginning of the day, but now we're going to really get down into it. What do we say? We say, thank you, God. We say, first of all, the soul is taharahi, it is pure. The soul can never be affected by all these impurities that I've just been dealing with for the past 5 minutes in my morning routine. Right? The soul never gets affected by any of that. That's first of all. Second of all, I want to thank you both for for creating the soul, for forming it, and most importantly, for breathing it into me. What does breathing it into me mean? The Talmud tells us, I think it's the Talmud, maybe it's the Zohar. It tells us, that when a person blows, they blow from deep inside themselves. Think about it. I've been talking for the past half hour, right? I haven't run out of, well, okay, I have little breaks as you guys read. But I haven't run out of breath, right? Why is that? And never mind walking around the whole day and breathing. If we're healthy, right, thank God, and we don't have to have extra oxygen things, right, which sometimes happens to someone, that's when they begin to appreciate it. So then breathing also doesn't get you out of breath. You don't get out of breath. When do you get out of breath? Anybody ever try to blow up a balloon? Right? One breath and now you're ready. Right? Why? Because all of a sudden when you're blowing, when you're blowing something into something else, you're taking a much deeper breath, much deeper inside of you. Similarly, when God breathed the soul into Adam, and then into every single one, by extension to every single one of us, he didn't breathe it. The term is nafach, which means he blew it. He blew the soul. In other words, the soul comes from a very, very deep part of God. That's the source of the soul. And when God did so, he made that this deep sense of godliness that he instilled within every single one of us, what we call the Neshama, what we call the soul, he made that there should be this miraculous connection between the soul and the body, and that every single day that connection should continue, and that even though every night it takes a pause, right, or it takes a break, every morning it should restart with gusto. Let's read about this in text 6. Leticia, you want to read for us, please? Here you go. So we're in the textbook now, on page 27, text 6, again, from the Frierdiker Rebbe, the previous Rebbe, the Rebbe Rayatz.
The essential core of the soul transcends the consciousness that gives life to the body. So it is completely unaffected by anything that occurs to the body. It is unaffected by the body's smallness and greatness, or the body's strength or weakness. It is fundamentally removed from the body, and only God's ability to perform wondrously binds it to the body and unites the spiritual with the material.
Okay, thank you. I hope they're not hearing all that banging around. If you are, I apologize on Facebook if you're hearing the banging as we're popping the mic from one person to another person. Okay, in other words, the soul being connected to the body and animating our body and being a godly force in our body and being that godly energy that we can tap into every single day with everything that we do is something to be very thankful to God, because we shouldn't take it for granted. And that's why we say this blessing of Elokai Neshama. Okay, we can close the Siddur. That concludes the 3 blessings that we'd like to talk about today. There's an appendix on page 28 in your textbook, which goes through the additional laws relating to Netilat Yadayim. I'm not going to go through all of them. I want to talk just about 2 of them. Number 1 is a nap, because last week we discussed this a little bit. If a person takes a nap during the day, they should still wash negavas, so they should still wash their hands when they wake up. The same concept applies. Meaning you're unconscious, your hands may have gone anywhere, all the different reasons that we said earlier. Okay. And then there are other times throughout the day that we wash our hands. It's customary to wash our hands. And I want to go through some of them. If you want to follow with me, I'm in point E on page 28 in the appendix. If you do any of the following things, you must wash your hands with water. Number 1, if you lie in bed. Okay, so even if you don't go to sleep, even if you just lie in bed. Number 2, if you use the bathroom. Number 3, if you cut your fingernails or toenails. Number 4, if you touch your shoes. Number 5, if you touch any part of your body that is normally covered by clothing. Number 6, if you touch your feet, even if they are not normally covered. Number 7, if you scratch your scalp. Number 8, if you engage in marital relations. Number 9, if you visit a cemetery or participate in a funeral or are present in the immediate vicinity of a dead body. And number 10, if you get a haircut. Now, not every single one of these situations necessitates necessarily the full Netilat Yadayim, with I think some of them yes and some of them not, depending on different opinions, etc. If you have the ability to do so, great. If not, then at least just wash your hands. And if you can't wash your hands, by the way, and there's no water around you for whatever reason, right? You're on a road trip or something, then at the very least, you should take your hands on some sort of surface, ideally wood or right, something like that, or cloth, and you should rub all sides of your hands, the front, the back, the sides, at least that, right? Okay. And the same thing with the blessing. It's not necessarily to make the full blessing of Netilat Yadayim after every single one of those instances, but at least in the morning we make Netilat Yadayim the first time we do it, because that's the main kind of prototype for the whole day. So that's just some additional blessings. And then, as Jonathan mentioned when he was reading the instructions, on Tisha B'Av and Yom Kippur, those are the only 2 days a year when we're supposed to refrain from washing ourselves according to Jewish law, right? So we don't wash our hands for anything. So when we wash on Netilat Yadayim in the morning, we only wash until our knuckles. We do wash our thumb, but we only wash until our knuckles on each side, as Rabbi Elokai always reminds us in the shul, for those of you that are here in shul on Yom Kippur and Tisha B'Av. Okay, I think that kind of concludes some gaps that I wanted to fill in about some of the laws of Netilat Yadayim. And with this, we will conclude lesson 2 of the Siddur Unpacked, a new lease on life. And I hope you will join us all next week as we continue with lesson 3, Count Your Blessings. Thank you all for joining us.